Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Last month, a new psychedelic rock band called the Velvet Sundown started appearing on people's playlists on Spotify. They dropped 2 albums and quickly racked up a couple of 100,000 listeners on Spotify. The only problem is they probably don't actually exist. A Reddit user on the anti-AI subreddit posted, "Behold, a completely fake band on Spotify with 300,000 monthly listeners. Not a shred of evidence on the internet that this band has ever existed. AI-generated artist photo and album covers. Description reads like ChatGPT. A woman on TikTok said it was the first song in her Discover Weekly. I'm 100% sure this content is pushed by Spotify itself to further minimize the amount of money they pay artists." The potentially generated description, in case you're curious, reads, "There's something quietly spellbinding about the Velvet Sundown. You don't just listen to them, you drift into them. Their music doesn't shout for your attention, it seeps in slowly, like a scent that suddenly takes you back somewhere you didn't expect. Their sound mixes textures of 70s psychedelic alt-rock and folk rock, yet it blends effortlessly with modern alt-pop and indie structures. Shimmering tremolos, warm tape reverbs, and the gentle swirl of organs give everything a sense of history without it ever feeling forced. The Velvet Sundown aren't trying to revive the past, they're rewriting it. They sound like the memory of a time that never actually happened, but somehow they make it feel real." Now, while there might not be any M-dashes in this, it certainly does sound like the kind of schlock that you might get from ChatGPT. So is this band an AI construct? And if they are, does it matter? In the past week or so, the Velvet Sundown has become a very hot topic of conversation in music and internet cultural media. Consequently, we have multiple deep dive investigations trying to figure out whether in fact the band is AI generated. The first and perhaps most obvious indication is the pictures. I think for anyone who has spent any time with AI, they certainly have that feel of AI generation. The album covers are almost certainly AI generated, even if the rest of the band is not. But at this point, it should be pointed out that having AI generated covers and AI generated descriptions doesn't make the band fake. It just makes them like pretty much everyone else at this point who is using AI for generating images and generating descriptions. A bigger tell is that none of the band members seem to actually exist. They don't have any social media accounts, haven't done interviews, and in fact have zero internet presence whatsoever. In fact, the band's social media presence only spawned recently, once they started getting media attention. Their Instagram is filled with very obvious AI-generated photos, and the song's credits are also suspicious with no producers or extra writers outside of the band listed. Then there are the songs themselves. Music Radar wrote, "The band's country-tinged roots rock bears the unmistakable lo-fi veneer of a Suno creation, but is convincing enough to pass by undetected if sandwiched in a playlist between 2 authentic songs." And indeed, while most of their listens now are curiosity after people have read articles like this one, the initial couple 100,000 listeners came largely from Spotify's generated playlists like Discover Weekly. A huge amount of Spotify listenership is in the form of personalized playlists that are generated by Spotify's recommendation algorithm. In a post on X, the band denied the rumors. With a bio that reads, "Yes, we are a real band and we never use AI, #NeverAI, they wrote a thread, "Absolutely crazy that so-called journalists keep pushing the lazy, baseless theory that the Velvet Sundown is AI generated with zero evidence. Not a single one of these quote-unquote writers has reached out, visited a show, or listened beyond the Spotify algorithm. This is not a joke. This is our music written in long, sweaty nights in a cramped bungalow in California with real instruments, real minds, and real soul. Every chord, every lyric, every mistake, human. Just because we don't do TikTok dances or live stream our process doesn't mean we're fake. The fact that some blog editors would rather pretend we're a bunch of machines than admit an unknown band is out here grinding and made something people enjoy is insulting. We've had to lock down our personal accounts due to harassment, all because some writer wanted clicks and couldn't imagine people like us existing outside their sanitized indie media echo chamber. Shame on every outlet amplifying this narrative. We are real. Think next time before you erase people." Forgive me for piling on, but methinks the lady doth protest too much. Indeed, when it comes to whether the Velvet Sundown is a real band or an AI-generated art piece, if I were a betting man, I would put basically all of my chips on it being some sort of very intentional experiment that's meant to provoke exactly the conversation it's provoking. Now, what I don't know is to what extent it's from a pro-AI or anti-AI source, but it's definitely trying to provoke a conversation. And so let's have that conversation. One of the things that's really interesting about this is that in other social media channels, think TikTok and YouTube, there is an incredible amount of AI content that is self-professed and unabashed. There's the Bigfoot and Yeti videos, vlog warts, all of these things that I profiled recently in another episode. music hasn't yet seen that level of infiltration. Yes, we have had a couple of breakout moments in AI music. King Wallonius's BBL Drizzy being used during the whole Drake-Kendrick feud was a really notable one. And again, on Spotify, there are accounts like Beats by AI Official, which use AI to create humorous songs that have racked up just an incredible number of views and 10 million likes, but which again are very, very clear. Beats by AI Official got its start with a series of posts called Asking AI to Make a Hit Country Song. It did it every day for months, eventually built an audience, and turned that into some very humorous and very not safe for work songs. And yet, broadly speaking, there is definitely a stronger reaction against AI music than AI in other creative genres. A piece in Music Business Worldwide recently was called "The AI Music Problem on Spotify is Worse Than You Think." They point to outlaw country artist Avanthus, which has over 1 million listeners each month, and which is for sure and known to be AI generated. Now, in the case of Avanthus, it does appear to be a little bit more of an intentional product from a musician. When someone a couple of months ago asked in a YouTube comment what role AI played in the artist's music, the anonymous owner of the channel replied, "The voice and images created with the help of AI, the lyrics are written by me." And if you go to the credits on Spotify, the written by and produced by is someone named David Vieira. The article then goes on to point out a couple of other examples, coming of course to the Velvet Sundown. And if you go check out Twitter/X, there are people like Anju Online who write, "Not enough music people are actually paying attention to this Velvet Sundown situation. The future of streaming services is about to be so bleak." Cohenrad Sheepers writes, "AI now births entire music acts. I came across the Velvet Sundown, which has lyrics, vocals, and visuals all generated by AI. This again just highlights how its creative output is outpacing our ability to regulate it. Scary part is that I would 100% listen to this over many quote-unquote real artists." Massimo at Rainmaker 1973 writes, "The Velvet Sundown apparently has only existed for 2 weeks and has over 400,000 monthly listeners. It's a totally generated AI band. Easily, people who primarily interface with music via algorithmically generated playlists will soon only listen to AI-generated music." Signal writes, "These guys are only 2 weeks old, 411,000 Spotify listeners, and entirely AI-generated. This is the first time I've seen a totally synthetic act hit cultural velocity this fast. Whoever made this didn't just use AI, they understood narrative. And this is just the beginning." There is a lot to unpack here. First of all, while I agree entirely that whoever is behind the Velvet Sundown is creating an entire experience that understands narrative and is not just about the music, I don't think it's fair to claim that there's actual cultural velocity here. These are not hit songs. These are not diehard fans. These are curiosity listeners, at least half of which have come pretty directly from the articles about the curiosity that is this band. One way to tell is the disparity between the monthly listeners and the followers. There have been 634,000 monthly listeners, but only 11,000 people have actually decided to follow the band. Now, what's super clear is that there is going to be more of this type of experimentation. Sometimes people will anonymously use AI. Sometimes musicians will explicitly and clearly use AI. But like any other technology tool, it is going to impact the music that gets created. There are inevitably going to be AI-generated hits. It is just absolutely inevitable. What's more, there is an incredibly large market for background music in everything from videos to games that will likely find its way to AI generation as a cheaper solve. The question is, how problematic is this? And from a creativity standpoint, I don't think that the introduction of AI somehow threatens human creativity without AI. That's basically what my entire interview with Rick Rubin was about. Where it gets more dicey and where I think people are reacting is to what extent AI-generated music competes with human-generated music for limited attention. And the irony here is that the AI that I think people are actually angry at is not, in fact, AI-generated music. It is instead the tyranny of the algorithm. None of this is new, so forgive me for trying to make it sound profound. The reality is that we live in an algorithmically mediated world. The social networks where we consume content, media, news, music, videos, all of it is carefully curated for us based on micro-expressions of our interest and intent, all which get sucked into a big AI Borg and spit back out at us things that it thinks we will like. The Velvet Sundown sounds like a very particular type of band. It's not surprising that the Spotify algorithm is picking up that if you like other types of bands in this genre, you might respond positively to them as well. And I think in some ways what people are reacting to is the idea of being forced to consume something which feels artificial. What makes this whole moment so interesting to me is that we are talking about the confluence of two types of AI: new AI-generated content and the algorithm-run channels where that content gets discovered. As I discussed in that show about AI video, it's very clear that AI is taking over some of those algorithm channels already. But it wouldn't be all that surprising to me if people have a different type of reaction in music and want a different approach. Forever ago, literally more than 2 years ago, Product Hunt founder Ryan Hoover wrote "Free startup idea that will likely get you sued. AI Spotify. How it works. AI Spotify hosts AI-generated music from your favorite artists. Anyone can submit music, and the best songs surface based on listens and likes. Music with the most listens earns a pro rata share of subscription revenue reserved for the original artists. For example, Drake could claim money generated from his likeness on the platform. Artists that do not want to participate can opt out entirely, banning any music that uses their likeness or individually allow songs they endorse. Of course, there are many ethical and legal issues with this model, especially with labels, but maybe this is a germ of a shower thought that has potential." Now, at the time, what we were focused on was how people were making songs that imitated the voices of prominent artists. Obviously, now with things like the Velvet Sundown, we're talking about artists that are generated from scratch. And so perhaps AI Spotify looks a little bit different. But it still wouldn't surprise me if we start to see some number of channels which reach escape velocity, which are based on hosting new types of AI generation separate from other types of human creative experiences. Maybe not, and maybe it all gets integrated into one spot, but it feels like new types of content, when they emerge, tend to bring with them ultimately their own new networks as well. In fact, I think it would be surprising if we didn't see something similar with AI. For now, like I said, I'm pretty sure the Velvet Sundown is trying to provoke conversation. So go check them out, and then share what you think about it on your algorithmically mediated social network of choice. That's going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace